Welcome back to 21 Chapters. It begins in childhood, the first encounter with guilt. A child reaches for a cookie, knowing it's forbidden. A moment of hesitation, a glance over the shoulder, and then the decision, to sin, or not? The hand snatches the treat. The sugar melts on the tongue, pleasure floods the senses, but almost instantly, there is a pang of regret. This moment, seemingly trivial, is a microcosm of human nature. Throughout history, religious doctrines, ethical frameworks, and legal systems have attempted to define and control sin, but what if the struggle between virtue and vice is not just moral, but biological? Are we predisposed to moral failure? Do the so-called 7 deadly sins, pride, envy, wrath, sloth, greed, lust, and gluttony, emerge naturally from human psychology? This chapter unravels the intricate relationship between biology, cognitive biases, and moral reasoning, setting the stage for a deeper understanding of why we so often choose what we know is wrong. The neuroscience of temptation. Beneath every impulse, every craving, and every moral lapse lies the brain's reward system, a complex interplay of dopamine, impulse control, and reinforcement mechanisms. Imagine a prehistoric ancestor stumbling upon a tree heavy with ripe fruit. The instinct to gorge is not one of gluttony, but of survival. Dopamine surges, reinforcing the behavior. Fast forward to the modern world, and that same system now responds to sugary foods, online validation, and addictive substances. However, the prefrontal cortex, responsible for rational thought and self-control, is more advanced. This creates a fundamental tension. The limbic system craves, the prefrontal cortex restrains. But when willpower weakens, due to stress, fatigue, or habit, the limbic system wins. This neurological conflict mirrors the moral struggle at the heart of every philosophy. Do we act on instinct, or do we choose discipline? Evolutionary psychology and the survival of vice. Each of the 7 deadly sins has an so-called purpose. What we now call moral failure some believe ensure survival. Pride ensures dominance in social hierarchies. Envy motivates competition for scarce resources. Wrath serves as a protective mechanism. Sloth preserves energy in times of famine. Greed ensures resource hoarding for survival. Lust guarantees reproductive success. Gluttony prevents starvation in uncertain environments. But in today's world, we know these so-called instincts backfire. The very traits fuel mental illness, addiction, and societal dysfunction. Cognitive biases, the lies we tell ourselves. The mind does not sin without justification. Instead, cognitive biases create illusions that make immoral or self-destructive behavior seem rational. The justification effect, I deserve this indulgence after a hard day. The optimism bias, one more won't hurt. The moral licensing effect, I was good earlier, so I can afford to be bad now. These mental shortcuts enable us to engage in actions that conflict with our values, often without even realizing it. Are we more than our instincts? If sin is wired into our biology, are we powerless to resist it? Neuroscience says no. Neuroplasticity shows that habits and thought patterns can be rewired. Meditation training strengthens the prefrontal cortex, increasing self-control. Delayed gratification studies, like the famous Stanford marshmallow experiment, reveal that self-discipline is a skill that can be trained. Sin is not an inevitability, but a challenge, one that requires awareness, discipline, and effort to overcome. Conclusion: the battle within. A man stands at a crossroads. To the left, indulgence; to the right, restraint. The path of indulgence is easier, promising pleasure without delay. The path of restraint is difficult, offering rewards that are distant and uncertain. This is the eternal battle, not against an external enemy, but against the weaknesses within. Are we wired to sin? The evidence suggests that we are wired to be tempted, but not to surrender. The mind has the capacity for discipline, resilience, and transformation. Understanding the psychology of sin is the first step toward mastering it. In the next chapter, we begin our exploration of the first deadly sin, pride, how it seduces, distorts, and ultimately leads to downfall. Like, share, and subscribe to uncover more.